Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen and today I'll be reading the one-shot Will You Read My Eulogy by the Corvid Prince. This isn't the first one-shot that I've done from them, so if you haven't seen the other one, I'll link it at the end of the vid, in the cards, if I remember, that is. Anyway, this is a lot of angst, so I'll just read you the summary and then I'll give you all the warnings afterwards. Here is the summary. Dazai's had enough. He dropped everything and left the Port Mafia when his best friend had died. But he finds it next to impossible to go into the light as his late friend hoped for him. Instead, he lingers and deteriorates within a dingy motel room until he finally had enough and decides there's no time better than to fulfill his life's greatest wish than the present. But before he takes his own life, he feels he must write letters to those he's wronged and had been wronged by the most. Now, this is exclusively angst. There is nothing. Actually, the end is a little bit wholesome, but it's angst. And please take care of yourself. I will leave supports in the description below. Please take care of yourself. I don't care if you don't watch this video. Just please take care of yourself. This has warnings for suicide, and because it's Dazai, and I think there's a couple of Mory warnings too. Hang on, let me just check the tags. Nothing in the tags, but if there is anything, I will leave it down below in the link in the description. Anyway, make sure to take care of yourself, and let's head right into the fic. Make sure your health comes first. Osamu Dazai has never been the most stable person in the world, considering he was a mafia executive by age 18. A life constantly on the border of insanity seemed like it would be his only constant. The fact that he was actively suicidal didn't do him any favours either. But somehow, the young man had managed to keep himself relatively sane and regrettably alive in the Port Mafia. The young man still wanted to end his life, even when things were at their best within the organisation. He made 2 friends to drink with, had an insufferable partner to work with, and mentored a strong young ability user, though his mentoring could have used some significant improvements. Dazai had Yokohama in the palm of his hand. The position of head of the Port Mafia only a bullet or slit of the throat away if he wanted. It was incredible how quickly a life could change. In one moment, the young executive was on top of the world, ready to inherit the position of blood and darkness, the places where he thrived the most. But the next, Mory had kicked the stool beneath his feet, leaving him hanging by his neck and utterly vulnerable. Osamu Dazai wanted to die, but he wanted it on his own terms. Oda Sakunosuke, one of the executive's dearest friends, was never supposed to die. He was supposed to escape from the grasps of the Port Mafia, raise his army of orphans, and write the novel he always wanted to complete. His death through Dazai's life. His death through Dazai's life, of course, but the young executive would not have been shocked if that's what Mory wanted from him. The boss was terrified of what the young man was capable of and tried to push him out to save his own neck. Dazai had fled Port Mafia without a word to anyone. Essentially, the eternal thorn in his side of a working partner. Perhaps a small amount of guilt found its way into his heart when he had fixed the bomb to the underside of his partner's car, but that was neither here nor there. He ran as far as he could from Yokohama, finding himself in a dingy-looking motel on the city's outskirts. The atmosphere was not inviting nor comforting to a man who was desperately trying to mourn the loss of one of his closest friends while coming to terms with another close friend betraying his trust. It did not do the suicidal man any favours to be locked in a room that was on the verge of black mould without any light. Dazai went from passively suicidal to actively trying to end his life in rapid time. He has spent much of his adolescent life dreaming up ways to kill himself, but there had never been much actual drive to follow through before now. He sat at the well-worn wooden desk in his motel room, spinning a gun at the end of his fingers while scowling at a small stack of papers. If Dazai were to commit the spectacle of killing himself, he would have to leave a note. But the problem with that was he wasn't sure who to address his note to. There was much he needed to say to quite a few people in his life that couldn't easily be summed up into one note. I could always write multiple suicide notes. The former mafia executive muses himself with a slight smirk. That would show them all. Dazai sets the gun down in the upper left corner of the desk as he gently stands his head on the edge of the hard surface. I don't want to write that many suicide notes, he whines, but I'm gonna have to if I want to say everything I need to everyone. Dazai picks himself up from the desk with one more dramatic sigh before picking up the first sheet of paper and uncapping the cheap motel black pen. I suppose it would be easier to write to the dead. I suppose I should start easy and write to the dead man. Dazai sighs as he starts writing, the pen leaking ink onto his hands, not that he cares. Oda. I don't even know where to begin other than to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for getting you killed. I'm sorry for you never got to live the life the way you wanted. I feel so guilty. I should have tried harder to keep you from fighting Guide. Wow, okay. Thanks. The guy that killed Oda. Okay. I should have been there for you. I should have been there before he got to you. There was so much I should have done differently, and I will never stop regretting that. If by some miracle there was a way to bring you back, I would. I'm going to miss you so much. He is crying in frustration and is angry at the world within minutes. How dare the world rob someone so utterly good of his life before he had a chance to fulfill his greatest desires in life. Oda deserves to be a writer more than Dazai deserved to be alive. The former mafia executive wishes with every fibre of his being that he could swap places with his dearly departed friend. Dazai sighs and keeps writing. You told me to go into the light and find something to make my life worthwhile, but I don't think I can do that, Odasaku. It's just too hard. Please know I tried, and know that it's not your fault that I want to die. You know me. I've always craved the sweet release of death. Your presence in my life has only prolonged the inevitable. I wanted to try to be good for you. I really did. Nothing has ever meant more to me than your praise, but I'm hurting so badly that I don't think I can go on. I've tried so hard to not be consumed by the darkness, but now I'm drowning in it. I'm so lost without you, Odasaku. I hope you've reached the good one if there's any sort of... I've hoped you reach the good one if there's any sort of afterlife. You deserve nothing if not the best. The former mafioso tries to ignore the blotchy stains gracing the paper. He had never been much of a crier, but something about losing the man he considered one of his closest friends, and something of a father figure, had done a number on him. Dazai picks up the letter, sealing it with 2 quick swipes of his tongue before reaching for another piece. Thinking and reflecting on Oda's death had made him think of the other man who was some way involved in the red-haired man's demise, Ango Sakaguchi. Until recently, Dazai might have said that he was almost as much as a father figure to him as Oda, but of course, that was before he knew Oda was a spy for the Special Division, and all the memories they had made together were not genuine. He was the reason Oda was dead. Dazai just wishes he knew why Ango betrayed them in the end. Maybe he was just naive, but he thought they genuinely liked one another. Hell, he even caught Ango and Oda making out in a secluded corner of the Lupton a couple of times. What had changed? Dazai sniffles, holding back another wave of tears as he puts pen to paper, wondering what to say to a man who betrayed him and Oda. Ango, I know you weren't entirely who you said when we first met, but I thought you cared. I thought you were different to the rest of the Port Mafia. Dazai wipes his nose with the back of his hand, uncaring for the snot that might stick to him. Internalizing his rage at the relatively silent man is difficult for him. He likes to think about the more he thinks about his memories of Ango, the more rage fills his veins. Ango had gotten him to let his guard down without a second thought. Was the black-haired man such an expert at manipulation that he effortlessly tricked Oda and Dazai into enjoying his company? He presses so hard on the page as he continues that he was shocked the pen was still in one piece. Were any of our memories at the Lupin real? Lupin, there we go. Lupin real? Did you ever really care about me or Oda? Was it your plan for us to trust you more? Odasaku fucking loved you, Ango. He looked at you like you hung the fucking stars. When you were kidnapped, he tried to rescue you. And he tried to rescue you? Did you know he called me crying thinking you were dead? He convinced himself and that Guide and Mimic were targeting all the people he cared about. I hope that you're hurting right now. If you truly loved Odasaku, you deserve to live with the guilt for the rest of your life. I do not care if you had some good reason for your actions. You betrayed us, and what do you get out of it? At least that bastard Mory got a gifted organization permit. I don't think you got shit out of it. Dazai is starting to get a headache from how hard he's pressing the pen, and the letter shows it. Ink bleeding onto his hands. The anger and hatred in the letter is beyond palpable. You broke Oda's heart. You broke mine. I thought we meant something to you, but apparently we were just pawns in your little game. The former mafioso swallows another sob as he forces himself to reach a conclusion of his letter. There was so much he wanted to say to the man who betrayed him and Odasaku, so much resentment and utter depression. Why did you have to do it? Dazai gulps in on air as he desperately tries not to sob. He's mostly gotten over the anger of the situation. Were we not good enough for you? You know very well that if you were in some sort of trouble with your special division, we would have done everything in our power to help you. But for whatever reason, you still decided to betray us. I'm very sorry if it's my fault you didn't trust Odasaku and me. I hope you're happy to know that your job is doubtly successful soon. I'm going to kill myself, Ango, for real this time. None of this tracking bullshit you're used to from me. If, for whatever reason, you happen to be reading this in your comfortable office chair, make sure I'm buried beside Odasaku. Don't bother visiting our graves if you're not genuinely sorry for what you've done. Dazai. With another letter done, Dazai drags his feet to the bed and collapses face first onto the mattress that's just a little too firm for his liking. He hates that sleep comes so easily between the hiccups and laboured breathing. When sunrays pull him from yet another dreamless sleep, Dazai does not waste time with cleaning himself or having a bite to eat. He has a couple more suicide letters he needs to write, but he secretly hoped he might expire before the completion of the last one. His limbs felt sore and heavy, and his chest is tight from the amount he sobbed last night. Who to start the day with? The former mafioso muses to himself. So many choices. But there was one choice that was a little more obvious than the rest. Someone who with whom he had absolutely no positive memories and nothing but vitriol to write about, Mory. Dazai smooths down another piece of paper, picks up his pen, and starts writing his suicide note to the man he despises and more than anyone and anything in the world. Bastard. Fuck you. Fuck you from the bottom of my fucking heart. If there were anyone I wanted to kill more than if there was anyone I wanted to kill more than anyone else, it would be you stupid bastard. You ruined my life, you destroyed my friend's life, and you ruined the Port Mafia as a whole. And you are the reason I'm going to end my life. I hope every breath you take before you rot in hell tears you apart inside. With that stupid little ability of yours that you're weirdly in love with, I hope she grows up to hate you every single second of every day. And you are reminded how shitty you are and that you don't deserve to be alive. I hate you so goddamn much, you rat bastard. You ruined everything I've cared about. Even if I had stayed in the Port Mafia, I would not give you what you wanted. You wanted me to be the perfect prodigy and run the Port Mafia after I inevitably killed you. But I never would have let you. I would never let you have that victory. Now I'm finally going to get the greatest wish of my life, and you will be stuck with an organization that despises you. Once I'm dead, I'm going to haunt your ass for the rest of eternity. And there's nothing you can do about it. If you will see traces of me everywhere, because I will not let you forget what you did to me. And everything I care about. Die, die, die. Osamu Dazai. Dazai is half tempted to crumple the letter to Mory in a teensy ball and set it on fire. The mere thought of the asshole reading anything he wrote fills the young man with a strange, queasy feeling that he did not want to experience again. He'd done very well in covering his tracks after defecting, so no one, especially not him, would find him. However, Dazai was so terrified that he left even the teeniest of the clues to his whereabouts, and that neurotic pedophile would aid in that neurotic pedophile in locating him before he had the chance to kill himself. With that in mind, he decides to write a much calmer letter, one that was beyond overdue to its recipient, an apology letter to Akutagawa. The young boy did not deserve anything Dazai had done to him in the name of making his ability stronger. It was abuse, plain and simple. That was a fact that made the teen more than a little queasy to admit. He had terrorized a 14-year-old boy in much the same manner that the bastard Mory had molded him into the into the demon prodigy at the same age. Dear Akutagawa, if you're reading, you probably were not expecting this letter, but you need to read it. You do not deserve what I did to you. Reread that as many times as you need. Read that a couple of times until you start to believe it. It's true for Inosuke. You were just a child, a very strong one, but still a child. What I did to you was unforgivable, and there's not enough words to apologize to you properly for what I did. Dazai is visibly more solemn and calm as he writes the letter to Akutagawa than his previous letters. He does his best not to let his sorrow show too much, but the hurt and grief manage to slip through in the form of ink smudging. Guilt wasn't a good look on him, but it was the only emotional suitable for the situation. You have always been strong, even before I met you. Not just any child can withstand the horrors you and your sister did in the slums, where I found you huddled up to one another. I know you took it upon yourself to ensure every young person in your town was fed before yourself. Your resilience and commitment to your friends shows your natural prosperity towards leadership. The letter's words flow smoothly out of his pen while the young man's thoughts are a tangled mess. Even a few weeks ago, the thought of the young man giving the young man a genuine compliment would have caused Dazai to gag. But now, here he was, praising the kid like his life depended on it. Rashomon is a formidable ability that you have learnt to wield with great care. I'm greatly honoured to have played a small part in helping you hone that very special ability. There's no doubt in my mind that you will go far, whether it's in the Port Mafia, you might even be the boss one day if you so desire, or elsewhere. Dazai sighs as he wipes a single tear from his eye. Damn, he'd gotten soft over the past couple of weeks, since defecting from the Port Mafia. His pen shakes as he nears the end of his letter to his betrayed pupil, who in all likelihood would not know how much Dazai truly admired him. I regret many things about training you. However, I don't believe there's something I would regret more than the fact that I will not be able to see you grow. If by some miracle you ever get to read this, I'm extraordinarily sorry that you'll never get to hear me praise you in person. I'm killing myself, Akutagawa. I can no longer bear the tragedy that occurred as a result of my negligence and my inability to adequately express how I feel. Oda's death, I fucked you up, and Dazai couldn't bear to write the other name, the name of someone who he's potentially wronged the most. Please take care of him. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Make sure he doesn't join me anytime soon. I don't want to see his tacky hat in the afterlife before I have to. Just enjoy your life. Don't let it end too soon. That's my last command to you as your superior, Osamu Dazai. Fucking Christ, the teen sighs, placing his forehead against the cheap wooden desk in his motel room after he sealed Akutagawa's letter and added it to a small stack. I don't want to do that ever again. But he knew he had more to write. There was one person who deserved a suicide note or any sort of explanation. There was one person who deserved a suicide note or any sort of explanation as to why Dazai had up and left him. It would be the person he was avoiding writing a letter to from the beginning, as it was the person who deserved an explanation more than anyone else, Chuuya Nakahara. Dazai could fill so many pages with everything he had to apologize for or explain to his partner. But by the time he had time to accurately write everything he had done to Chuuya over the years, he'd die of old age and still had more to apologize for. And since he had decided he would rather end his life sooner than later, he'd have to make an extremely abbreviated version. Hat rack, it's me. I can already tell by the look on your tiny face, Chibi. I can already see the look on your tiny face, Chibi. I'm sure you have questions as to why in the world the Port Mafia's latest traitor is contacting you, and you're tempted to tear this letter to shreds before you even learn too much. But just hear me out, please. Even if you still decide to destroy this letter after reading this, please just read it through anyway. Alright, this is potentially the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, so please don't laugh at me, even though you're entitled to the joy of my misery after everything. Alright, here it goes. I'm sorry. Dazai feels the telltale burning of tears in his eyes and bites his lip to prevent the liquid from falling and ruining another paper. He's not sure why he's suddenly emotional. This was far from the first apology he had written in the suicide notes, but for whatever reason, it made him the most guilty. This had made him feel the most guilty. The young adult's chest trembles a little as his hand shakes as he desperately tries to maintain his composure, at least enough to finish this letter. I don't really apologize for anything. I don't really apologize for anything all that often, as you're well aware of, I'm sure. But that's what you deserve to hear. I'm sorry for making you feel so miserable when we were partners. I know you hated me for all the jokes I made about your hype, and for being my dog, for abandoning you after you used corruption, dumping my paperwork on you, blowing up your car before I left, and probably a whole lot of other things I can't even remember doing. I'm sorry for it all. You don't know how badly I wish there was even a halfway decent excuse to what I did to you. But there isn't. I was just a stupid kid who wasn't entirely sure what to do with his emotions. And good lord, did you make me feel emotions I'd never felt before. Rage, sorrow, other things. It was frankly frightening how easily you got me to show emotions. I wish I could give you an answer as to why I didn't tell you I was leaving the Port Mafia. I'm not sure I have one. You get on so well with everyone, and they love you so much that it would be selfish of me to think you would want to leave with me. But I also didn't think I wanted him to know that you're still an attachment of mine to use. Believe it or not, I want to keep you safe from harm, Chuuya. I suppose the best way of doing that is staying as far away from you as I can. That will not be an issue soon enough, though. I'm going to kill myself, Chuuya, for real this time. And this time I'll be nice enough to say goodbye to you, since we didn't get to last time. I hope the Port Mafia treats you well, and that I do not doubt one day you'll inherit the bastard's seat and bring yourself to a new and fruitful era of the organization. I swear I'll kill you if I learn you get killed anytime soon. Just let me enjoy a slug-free afterlife for a little while, alright? There's no hiding it anymore. Dazai sobbing, his tears leaking onto the page and smudging some of his ink. He despises that he can picture Chuuya's shocked expression as he discovers what became of his ex-partner. The way his brows would knit together, and he'd bite his lower lip in a futile attempt to not let his true emotions be seen. I'm sorry, Chuuya, he whispers out loud, as he puts his pen to the page one last time to write something he's never had the courage to say out loud. I love you, Chuuya. I don't know when I realised it's why I was acting so strange to you, but it's true. I've loved you for as long as I can remember, and maybe even a little bit before then too. Promise you won't do anything too drastic now that you've learnt this, alright? Dazai. Heart. With his last suicide letter complete, and encased an envelope with no plans to seal or send, Dazai's eyes are pulled to another item on the cheap wood of the motel room. A sleek silver revolver that was one of the few possessions he had kept before abandoning his shipping container and leaving the Port Mafia behind him for good. The barrel contained exactly 3 bullets, the precise amount for the executive traders the precise amount to use to execute traitors to the Port Mafia. Dazai found it fitting that he should die as a traitor to his organization, but more importantly as a traitor to his partner. So this is how it ends for me. He smiles wistfully as he places the firearm barrel against the center of his forehead. This is so much less dramatic than I was hoping for. For a brief moment, Dazai imagines Chuuya on the other end of the barrel instead of his own trembling fingers. The redhead man would sure have good reason to want him dead. He always had valid reasons for wishing harm upon his partner. Perhaps in another life, Chuuya could end Dazai's life instead of things happening this way. The young mafia deserter squeezes his eyes shut as he clicks the safety off the weapon in his hands. Despite his hands trembling quite a bit, Dazai manages to hold his hand steady and trails the gun from his forehead to the side of his face. He only manages to shoot himself twice before he falls limp. a substantial amount of blood leaking onto the neat stack of letters he'd written. It's not like anyone was actually going to read them. It's more of a way for him to cleanse his soul before he died, more than anything. As the last of life seeps from Dazai, he feels extremely at peace with everything, calmer than perhaps he'd ever felt in his life. He feels a great deal of pity for the poor housekeeper, and he imagines will find his body within a few days, but he doesn't find himself caring all that much. As much as he would like to care about silly little things, as who would find his lifeless corpse when his brain had conjured a little Sorry, I forgot to turn my notifications off. He could care less about the silly little things, like who'd find his lifeless corpse when his brain had conjured a literal angel while he was on the brink of death. Fiery red hair and striking blue eyes had only vaguely registered in Dazai's rapidly blurring vision, even when he logically knows that Chuuya isn't actually there with him, and it's a creation of his mind. So terrified by death, despite endlessly craving it for the past few years, he allows himself to indulge in his fantasy. "You came to curse me at my end?" Dazai says with a tired sigh. "How romantic of you." Of course, there was no response, but the dying man swears he hears a scoff before his vision goes completely black. His body becomes completely weightless. "Boss?" A timid white-haired young man asks, staring at his feet. "Why are we in a graveyard?" Chuuya snaps his head to the direction, his brows furrowing as his hands clench so he wouldn't blow up at his subordinate. "Don't you know better than to ask questions, Atsushi?" he growls. "Yes, sorry, boss." The young man bows his head. "I'll leave you be." Once the red-haired man is confident that Atsushi is out of earshot, he sinks to his knees before a grave. "You crazy bastard," Chuuya whispers as tracing his fingers over a familiar name etched on stone. "I can't believe it's already been 4 years." He saved his partner that night. He saved his ex-partner that night. At least he had initially. Dazai was so close to the brink of death that no longer human didn't activate when Chuuya used his ability on him. The red-haired man used that to his advantage, holding as much of the taller man's blood in his body as possible. He must have looked insane, bursting into the hospital with another gangly teen in his arms. But he didn't frankly care about it that much. Nurses surrounded him, prying a much too limp Dazai from his arms, and promised they would do everything they could to heal him. Chuuya waited in the hospital for 4 hours until a doctor allowed him to see his bastard former partner. The fact that the man had even survived the procedures was a miracle, but that wasn't good enough for the red-haired man. He needed the other team to wake up so he could demand answers as to why he left the Port Mafia. Dazai looked so calm, much too calm, all motionless in his hospital bed. His bandages were much too pristine, too unused. Chuuya's partner appeared more like a doll than a human now. The red-haired man plopped himself into a way too stiff chair beside Dazai's bed and gripped the teen's hand, trying to hold back prickling tears in his eyes. "Listen here, bastard," his voice shook. "You're gonna wake up. You have to. You have to give me and everyone else answers to why the fuck you decided to finally try to kill yourself." Then, in a quieter voice, he adds, "I read your letter to me, by the way. I feel the same way you do, but Next time, have the decency to tell me in person before you make a big show and I have to save your ass again. Chuuya stayed beside Dazai as much as he could without drawing suspicion from his boss as to where he had gone. His health didn't improve or change, it just was stagnant. Each time the doctor spoke with Chuuya, the chances of his partner's survival decreased, until one day the redhead man entered the hospital to the news that the other man's heart had stopped beating. And now it had been 4 years since Chuuya found his ex-partner. The only man he had ever loved. A lot has changed in those years. He became the Port Mafia's youngest leader only a few months after Dazai's death, when he finally grew tired of looking at Mory's face and had taken in a few members into the organisation that had blossomed into beautiful mafiosos. But no matter how many times his life changed, no matter how many times life changed, the Port Mafia boss would always come to his graveyard on the anniversary of the fateful day with an armful of carnations, under one arm and a load of guilt in his soul. I read all the letters, back then, before Chuuya trailed off for a moment. You sure had a lot of apologies to go around, didn't you? The red-haired man wipes a stray tear from his eye and smiles at the grave of his beloved ex-partner. One of the newest subordinates is crushing on me, he smiles to himself, but I rejected him, of course. For one, that would be highly inappropriate for me to date someone I have so much power over. I don't want to be like my predecessor, after all. Chuuya laughs to himself. But there's another reason I rejected him, The red-haired man absently tugs at the grass beneath his fingers and averts his eyes from the grave in embarrassment. My heart will always belong exclusively to you, Chuuya whispers, afraid of the words himself. He hated to admit that he was still helplessly in love with Dazai, even 4 years after he died, but it was the truth. Chuuya had considered trying to ignore the truth via alcohol or bodily needs, but he knew neither would stick. I'll come to see you again soon, bastard, Chuuya whispered affectionately, standing to his feet and smiling at the grave. He turned away from the grave for a moment, taking a few steps away before he returns with a sigh. Chuuya lifts his signature hat off of his head and places it on the corner of Dazai's headstone. This is your punishment for abandoning me and forcing me to wear my. Your punishment for abandoning me is being forced to wear my stupid hat. He smirks. No take-backs, Mackerel. I'll be back as soon as I can. Okay, that was the end of the fic, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're not crying too much, because I was close to crying as I was reading this out. And that was my 3rd time reading this fic, so yeah. Hope you guys aren't too emotional, and I hope I did the story justice. Thank you once again to the Corvid Prince for letting me read this fic. I'll leave it down below in the comments, and give it all the kudos and everything because it deserves to be loved. Anyway, take your time and enjoy yourself. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you later. Bye!